How is it going, everybody? My name is DeMarco, and today we're taking a deep dive into features in Starfield. I'm really crossing my fingers make it into the game before launch. Not as post-launch content, not as free DLC later on, just part of the base game when it releases day one. Now, it's possible that some of these features are already included within Starfield. It might not have been fully explained or clearly explained or talked about during the 30-minute gameplay demo that we received a couple months back. And if that is the case, it makes sense, right? You can't go through everything in 30 minutes for a game that's as ambitious as Starfield. But if that is the case, then we do need some clarification, hopefully at some point in the near future. But for now, let's get into my own personal list of features I hope to be in Starfield at launch. Spaceflight in Starfield is one of the biggest features that was announced. Having vehicles in general in a Bethesda game is a pretty new concept, which opens up worlds of potential for things that they can do. But there are certain things that Bethesda can do in order to elevate the flight experience beyond just having a baseline thing here to function that doesn't really try to push any boundaries in any way. One system that intrigued me in particular was the ability to hire crew onto your ship, and we're not 100% certain on what functionality that crew performs. In this, I was thinking that it would be pretty neat if the crew had some kind of a morale system, a system in place in which your crew members actually felt like real people and not just generic masses that are hanging out to provide numbers to your spaceship. A crew morale system can include dynamic behaviors and responses, and maybe they get in disagreements with other crew members, so you have to really pick and choose who you bring on board. It would also give your crewmates personality, so it feels like if something happened to them, you would actually care. Not that every single one is dispensable. There's other ways that you can do this too. Include some unique dialogue. Have the crew members talk about recent adventures that you went on, talk about the loot that you've picked up, the things that you've done in the game, whether it's the quests or think the guards in Skyrim, how they remark on certain factions that you might be aligned with, but a little bit more nuanced, a little bit more involved with more attention to detail in that space. Maybe some of them don't like piracy and you're playing a pirate, so they abandon you the next time you're on shore leave, right? That sort of thing. Now, of course, you can have some companions that you meet throughout Starfield fill in for some of these crew slots on your ship, and I'm really looking forward to having all of my favorite squad mates together on a ship going across the stars and buddy cop adventures. I can't wait for that. But seeing as how you can have crew sizes of like 10 or more people, it's going to need to be filled up with some of those more generic NPCs, and when that time does come, I'm just hoping that Bethesda takes what could be a very basic, simple experience and elevates it to a little bit more and really takes advantage of all the potential that can be found here. This next one also involves the ship mechanics within Starfield, and seeing as how that's the biggest new feature in a Bethesda game, there's a lot of potential to be explored here, and this one is actually rather simple, and that's just an autopilot system. It's been mentioned how Vasco can help you pilot the ship, and I'm hoping that does mean that if you want him to, he can do it for you, and not just in a fast travel method, which that should also be a functionality of the game, but to actually allow you as the captain to feel like a captain by delegating the responsibility of flying the ship to one of your crewmates, to your co-pilot, while you're able to then get up from your chair, walk around the ship to interact with crewmates, see how they're doing, if they need anything, work on weapons and armor modifications, or just simply look outside of the window as you're passing by asteroids, space stations, planets, whatever we might find out there. We did see that there is a get up button, but only specifically when the ship was docked to another one, so that in and of itself was pretty interesting. In Starfield, you'll find weapon crafting, armor crafting, and now brand new is spaceship crafting, which has its own unique set of skills as we've seen in the gameplay demo for Starfield. And one of the things that has bugged me the most in recent Bethesda games is the lack of ability to pay a specialist to do the job that they've been training their whole lives to do. Why is it my job in order to become a master armor smith or weaponsmith, or in this case, spaceship engineer? Why can't I pay somebody to do some of these things for me in order to make the custom assets that I'm looking for? If I don't want to play a character who's a master gunsmith, I shouldn't be penalized for not, out of obligation, taking the perks that allow me to add or take part in that aspect of the game. Instead, there should be people, NPCs in the world that I can interact with that can do some of the functionality for me. If it's spaceship crafting, maybe it takes a couple days before I actually get the ship that I ordered because I'm getting custom parts added to it. Or it might cost me a hell of a lot more to get some of these custom designs, but I shouldn't be locked out of all of that customization just because I don't want to take certain perks. This next one is something that I've actually brought up multiple times in the past, but I'm going to keep bringing it up because until it gets added as a normal feature, a standard feature in Bethesda games, I'm not going to be happy. This is something I cannot play Fallout 4 without this mod anymore. That is sim settlements. In other words, the ability for NPCs to build and expand and grow your settlements without you needing to do absolutely everything. Sim Settlements, I think, is one of the greatest mods that has come to Fallout 4, and I'm really hoping that Bethesda is able to just implement this functionality right at launch without needing mod support or modders to do it for them. Other games like Nightingale, which is coming from a group of former BioWare developers, has already explicitly stated that they're including a feature like this in their game. Now, that is a survival craft game, so the building is more intrinsically woven into the gameplay loop, but other titles are doing it. Mod makers have been able to do it. I really hope that Bethesda is able to figure this one out and do it here too. The only thing we've heard so far in that regard is that they'll help keep your settlements up and running, which doesn't exactly instill too much confidence, because that's something that I think Todd Howard would have wanted to brag about. It was honestly really cool. Like, you'd come back to your settlement and then you'd see these generic settlers that otherwise had zero personality suddenly felt a little bit more believable as they built their own houses that upgraded themselves individually and differently from all of the other ones that had interior decorations that really solidified a bit of their personality to see who lived there. It was really neat. Bethesda, please don't come on, you guys could do this. I know that you can. Bethesda has talked a lot about looking back at past titles to gain inspiration, and one thing that hasn't yet been mentioned by Bethesda is weapon degradation and armor degradation as well. This is a feature that has been present in a lot of former Bethesda games, but they sort of started to do away with it. I guess maybe because it felt a bit gimmicky, or they just didn't think it really fit within their games. I'm not too sure why they stopped including it. And if it's locked behind a survival mode, that's totally fine. I wouldn't mind that, but I do think that it added a little bit to have to maintain your weapons, or to, your favorite weapon is breaking down, so you need to use this other weapon that you have in your inventory that's not as great until you can repair it, or the guns jam more often, and all that great stuff. It's some really cool and seemingly simple functionality to have that does add to the immersion of some of these games, as long as it's not tedious to deal with. And then of course there should be perks that help you combat that, right? Weapons degrade slower, that sort of thing. So I don't know why it's been removed from a lot of Bethesda games, but I hope it makes its way back. Speaking of being locked behind a survival mode, that is number 6 on this list. Survival mode is a feature that has been added to the Creation Club for Skyrim. It was a post-launch update for Fallout 4. It is always, without a doubt, one of the most requested features for any Bethesda game, period, and there is no reason why Bethesda should fail to acknowledge that audience that wants the more hardcore experience, especially in a game where we're talking about fuel management and grav jump distance and realistic flight and gravity mechanics and all of this stuff that they've been talking about and bragging and boasting and sharing to all of the community. Survival mechanics from day one should be incorporated into the game, not as post-launch updates. Eating, sleeping, drinking, weapon degradation, crew management, these are all features that can be put behind a survival mode that's completely fine. Or alternatively, make each of these just toggleable individually. Maybe I want to have thirst and hunger in the game, but I don't want to have to deal with sleep. Or maybe I want weapon degradation, but I don't want to have to deal with managing my crew's morale, right? If each feature is individual, that's totally fine. I could tailor the experience to exactly what I want. I'm always a proponent of having more options available to players for the game. That way I can play exactly how I want to play. And then if you want, you can get the true survival experience by turning them all on at once. However they want to implement it, again, this is something, it's one of Bethesda's most popular features. It should be there. day one. So those are 6 things for me. I like this because we can be a little bit more realistic with some of the things that we talk about here. So let me know what you guys are thinking down in the comment section below, your own thoughts. And it's a bit different from a wish list, because a wish list, we don't know what the game looks like or feels like or plays like, so we can just kind of throw everything and anything that we're hoping out there, and some of it might be way off and some of it might be very, very close to what we actually get, and those are fun for different reasons. But now that we actually know what's possible and what's not within Starfield to some extent, let me know what you guys are thinking. Thank you, as always, for watching. If you like this type of stuff, consider subscribing, help grow the channel. And as always, I hope to see you all next time. So long, everybody.